In 1994, artist Mike Diana was found guilty on obscenity charges by a Florida court after distributing his zine Boiled Angel, not to children, but to adults. The comic featured many disturbing and graphic scenes, mostly inspired by actual events, and made particularly scathing attacks on religion. The comics were Xeroxed and distributed mainly within Diana's circle of friends. An undercover detective obtained an issue of Boiled Angel from Mike Diana and later arrested the artist, charging him with production, distribution, and advertising of obscene materials. Diana was found guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 3 years of probation, during which he had to submit to inspection of his home without warning or warrant. Such inspections would serve to determine if Diana were in possession of or producing obscene material, regardless of any intention to sell or otherwise distribute it. Further, he was to have no contact with children under 18. The court went so far as to order him not to go within 10 feet of a minor. Remember, he never sold a copy of Boiled Angel to a child in the first place, nor had any intention to. He was also forced to undergo psychological testing and take a course in journalistic ethics, both at his own expense, pay fines totaling $3,000, and perform over 1,200 hours of community service. He was essentially being told by the government what he could and could not draw in the privacy of his own home, for his eyes only, and treated as a child pornographer. How emblematic of the overall American attitude towards comics that the first, and thus far the only artist to be convicted of obscenity charges in the US is a comic book artist. Over the next 3 years, the decision was appealed twice at the state appellate court. During the first appeal, evidence gathered after the original trial was used for the prosecution, which is generally an ethical no-no. An amicus brief submitted by the ACLU was also refused, although the charge of advertising obscene materials was judged incorrect. According to Mike Diana's official website, Circuit Judge Douglas Byrd's 1996 ruling stated, among other things, that if the message portrayed by Boiled Angels number 7 and 8 is about victimization and that horrible things are happening in our society, as the appellant alleges, the appellant should have created a vehicle to send his message that was not obscene. Evidently, the world's harsh realities must be glazed over and made palatable in order for any observation or criticism to have any merit. The ACLU and the CBLDF petitioned the U.S. Supreme Court to hear the case, but in 1997, the Supreme Court denied the petition. The incredible irony of this case is that it undoubtedly served to propel Mike Diana to star status. It has helped expose more people to his work. He currently lives in New York, where he produces comics, paintings, and other art. Comics retailer Jesus Castillo was convicted by a Texas court of obscenity charges in August of 2000 for selling an adult manga titled Demon Beast: Invasion the Fallen to an adult. Further, the adult in question was an undercover police officer who requested that particular book by name. The prosecution's case was based entirely on the misconception that comic books are a children's medium, and that since Castillo's store was close to an elementary school, he was specifically trying to distribute adult material to children. A few crucial points should be noted regarding this case. First, the arresting officer made note of the fact that the book was contained in an enclosed adults-only section of Castillo's store. In fact, no customer was allowed into that area of the store without verification of ID. Second, during the trial, the defense brought forth expert testimony on the topics of Asian culture and the validity of comic books as an art form suitable for adults as well as children, including testimony by Scott McCloud. The testimony went unchallenged by the prosecution, but apparently was not the least bit considered in the ruling. Additionally, the defense brought up the point that pornographic magazines were readily available at gas stations and other stores well within the vicinity of the same elementary school, and that these magazines depicted photographs of more objectionable and lewd acts than those present in the manga Castillo sold. That point was also dismissed as inconsequential. It's mind-boggling to consider that drawings of sex acts could be considered more provocative or damaging to anyone, children or otherwise, than photographs of actual people engaged in the same acts. Perhaps the most infuriating aspect of this case concerns the state prosecutor's closing argument, in which, according to the CBLDF's website, she stated, "I don't care what type of evidence or what type of testimony is out there. Use your rationality, use your common sense. Comic books, traditionally, what we think of are for kids. This is a store directly across from elementary school, and it is put in a medium, in a forum, to directly appeal to kids. That is why we are here, ladies and gentlemen. We're here to get this off the shelf." Once again, Castillo was not on trial for selling adult material to children, but for responsibly selling it to a consenting adult. The case has been appealed and denied twice, and an appeal has been filed with the Supreme Court, but at the time of this writing, no decision has been made as to whether the Supreme Court will ever hear the case. If the precedent set by Mike Diana's case is any indication, Castillo's conviction will stand. The store manager will face more jail time and fines, and a disturbing legal precedent may be set. One final thing to consider in this patently ridiculous case: not long before the arrest, a mother who was outraged by the store's prices for Pokemon cards stormed out of the store, shouting threats and claiming that she had friends in high places. If this sounds very suspicious, well, that's because it should. For the record, I do personally find both of the above referenced works offensive, but not nearly as offensive as the attitude of censorship and ignorance permeating both cases. American society seemingly has a lot of difficulty separating the form of comic books from their more common genres, a malady that is almost unseen in any other art form or mass media. People have willfully blinded themselves to the innumerable possibilities inherent in comics. No matter what the cause of the problem, it is clearly something that will impede the development of comics, though in some ways it may actually help to keep the form pure. After all, it takes someone very devoted to their craft to choose to work in comics, despite the obscurity and contempt comic books are subject to. Such dedicated individuals may be the best hope for further innovation in comic books. Still, if nothing is done to improve public perception, there won't be many people left to appreciate that innovation or be influenced by it. One must remain hopeful, though. Even Frederick Wortham eventually came around and became a proponent of comics and fanzines. He even published a book praising them in 1980, titled The World of Fanzines. So, anything is possible. Too bad that book didn't gain anywhere near the amount of attention as Seduction of the Innocent.